Welcome, and thank you for joining us for an overview of the AVEVA PI system. My name is Katie Schauer, and I'll be your host for this presentation. This is a brief introduction to InSource. We are a 100% employee-owned company headquartered in Richmond, Virginia. We aim to provide the best-in-class manufacturing IT solutions to digitally transform your business and help you build a connected workforce. We want to be a catalyst for over $1 billion in client transformations by 2030. We know that technology alone is not enough, so we deliver solutions that are adopted, scalable, and sustainable. We believe that client success is also our success. At this time, I'd like to hand it over to Jarrett Messing, InSource Offering Manager and our presenter for today. Jarrett, take it away.
Great. Thank you, Katie. Like Katie mentioned, my name is Jarrett Messing, and I'm an Offering Manager with InSource Solutions. Today, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the AVEVA PI system, what it is, how it works, and how it can add value for companies in the manufacturing space. I'll also give you a demonstration of PI Vision, which is a web browser-based dashboarding tool that makes it easy for users to drag and drop different data visualization elements and create displays, create dashboards that they can use in their day-to-day operations and make their jobs easier, quicker, or more efficient. To start, I want to talk just very briefly about the value proposition behind PI, and I can do that quickly because it's pretty straightforward, right? Companies that seek out PI are looking to understand their productivity. They're looking to understand their performance, understand where they need to target for improvement and where they need to be making capital investments. They want to track that return on the investment and track their improvement. And they want to be able to diagnose issues both in real time and go back in time and see what was happening when a piece of machinery failed or what led a batch to not turn out just the way you were expecting to, and make sure you can turn that into lessons that can be prevented in the future. And then lastly, you need to get those insights, get that data into the hands of your users in order to create a competitive advantage. So if companies understand that this is important and they're willing to make an investment here, how successful are they being right now in the marketplace? Conversations between us and our customers and seeing some of the data that's put out there by survey companies and manufacturing companies leads us to believe that it's a little bit of a mixed bag, right? I put a couple of statistics up on the screen, and the one I want to draw your attention to first is that 43% number. And that's indicating that even companies that are making an investment to network their assets, to put in software, to collect data from their industrial sources, even the companies that are able to take that first step and collect that data, still are not always successful at getting the data into their users' hands in an actionable way. And if that's true, we have to ask ourselves, why is that and what can we do better? Now, as to the why, the answer is straightforward in that the process is pretty hard, right? Companies are trying to take data from a whole host of different sources, SCADA systems, DCS, PLC. They're trying to pull that data through a whole host of transactional systems, enterprise systems, and get that data into the hands of a whole host of different users who want to see data in different ways. They want to do different calculations or process data differently. And it creates this nasty spaghetti diagram that causes complexity and makes companies kind of throw up their hands and give up. Well, that's where the PI system comes into place in order to streamline this process and simplify it, collect data, store it, enrich it, and deliver it to all of these different users how they want to use it. And I'll talk about all those different steps individually. Starting with data collection, PI is really good at going out to all of your different industrial data sources and just sucking up massive amounts of data. PI can handle up to millions of tags. It can handle up to hundreds of thousands of data points per second, and it can process that data and store it in an optimized and efficient manner. PI also makes this really easy because it comes with all of these interfaces, connectors, and adapters, all included, all out of the box, where a user just has to configure these programs and point them at the data source. No programming, no development, really quick, really easy to get up and running and start collecting that data. I alluded to this before, but PI is built for this. It's purpose-built for industry. It's purpose-built for time series manufacturing data, and it's made to store it. right? What good is collecting millions and millions of data points if it takes you 5 minutes or 10 minutes to run a report or pull up a display? Pi is optimized to collect the data, store it, and deliver it all efficiently. Pi also comes with a whole host of data enrichment features that takes it from beyond a data archive, from beyond a historian-like product, and takes raw data and delivers it to your users as actionable insights and not as the raw data coming off of your machines. I'll talk a little bit about how it does that and how it's processing that data to work for you. Starting with the left and moving to the right, you're starting with that raw data in the data archive. And this is, again, where you're capturing data and storing it before you process it, before you deliver it. As I talk about each of these moving across, the first step is the asset framework, and that's where you're organizing your data. You're adding structure, you're adding context, you're adding metadata in order to make it easier for your users to find the data and understand what they're looking at. One of the biggest ways you do this is by creating one or more different hierarchies for your data. So you can create a hierarchy that aligns with your organizational structure. You've got tags assigned to an asset, which are assigned to a department, to a plant, to an enterprise, and that makes it really easy to drill down in almost a folder-like structure and find the information that you're looking for. And for example, if you're a user and you're working on the line and you want to understand the temperature of a holding tank or a chiller, you don't need to know the tag name. You don't need to know the PLC address. You don't need to know anything technical because you can just navigate through that structure and find the attribute that's been labeled temperature. The asset framework also comes with a whole host of templatization features. You can templatize assets, you can templatize attributes or calculations, and this makes it really much faster to both do an initial rollout and then to scale as well. Because if you've created these templates and you add a new machinery or even a new plant, you can use those templates to roll out and not start from scratch. Continuing left, I'll tell you a little bit about asset analytics. That's the calculation-based tool set that companies can use to take that raw data now that it's been organized and create metrics, KPIs, insights that are actually useful to people out on the floor, to supervisors, to managers, to people working on continuous improvement projects. You can take piece counters and run rates and conveyor speeds, and you can create calculations for OEE or asset availability or performance. Calculate that server side, historize it, and deliver it to your users both in real time and give them the ability to go back in time and see that metric for any time since you started collecting data. You can roll up those calculations. So if you set it up for one piece of equipment, you can set it up for a department, for a plant, for an enterprise. And just when you set it up that once, it automatically calculates at every layer of the organization. You can create rolling averages. You can create deltas to targets. Anything that you could format in an Excel workbook or a VBA macro, you can build in Pi with very limited programming knowledge. Again, just basic expressions or pseudocode. Event Frames is a condition monitoring platform. It's a way that you can automatically bookmark points in time. You set up a start condition, you set up an end condition, you say which attributes are most important to that type of event, and it will automatically go out and start flagging when those conditions occur. So for example, if you want to create an event for every batch, you'll say, when the batch counter changes, start a new event. You'll say, I'm most interested in how long the batch was in holding tank A, what the temperature was in that tank, what the agitator speed was. And then you can compare batch A to batch B and see, if batch A came out great and batch B didn't, maybe it was in the tank too long, or maybe the tank got too warm. You could use event frames for a whole host of purposes. A lot of companies use these to categorize downtime events so that when a machine goes down, you can see how long it was down for. You can capture 3 or 5 or 10 minutes of preceding data to see what might have contributed to that event. And then once it's over, you can add comments, you can assign a reason code, and compare the last few similar events to understand if there's a trend that's potentially causing you to have issues with your asset. And then anytime you create an event, you can also key a notification off of it or trigger a notification. This notification can be an email that goes out to an individual or a group of individuals. The emails can include escalation protocol, where if nobody acknowledges the event in 5 minutes or 10 minutes, it gets escalated to a group of managers or the plant manager. And that can be a really nice incentivizing feature to make sure that people actually do act on these and don't just leave them as unread messages in their inbox. But notifications can also be web service calls. They can trigger web APIs. So if you do set up your events to create every time there's a downtime incident, you can trigger off a notification to your web-based CMMS platform to automatically create a work order and dispatch a technician, all automatically, all before an operator has even walked over to start to see what's going on. And hopefully that helps you understand how the Pi system starts with raw data, just like any other historian or data archive platform, but has this whole host of data enrichment features that create insights that are much more broadly applicable throughout your organization. And then lastly, of course, what good is storing the data and enriching it if you can't deliver it and don't have any visualization tools for your users? But of course, Pi has great ways of getting that data out to your users. And the two I'll talk about are an Excel-based tool and a browser-based dashboarding tool. So to start, AVEVA Pi Data Link is that Excel-based tool. It sits right in the ribbon of your Excel workbook and lets you pull in either live data or historized data sampled over any period of any frequency that you want. And this is really convenient because you don't have to download CSV files, you don't have to import them and spend time cleansing data and reformatting it. It sits right in the ribbon, the data pops right into a sheet where you can add formulas or add macros or combine with other data sources and really unleash the power of Excel without any middle steps or extra processing. And then, of course, Pi Vision, which is that browser-based dashboard tool, and the tool I'm actually going to demonstrate for you in just a couple seconds. Super easy to use, very self-service. You don't need anyone in IT or anyone with a programming background to help you create these dashboards. Just give your users an hour or 2 hours of training, set them loose. They can drag and drop data elements. They can save displays. They can share them just by copying and pasting a URL. And then anybody with access to the tool and a browser can access them. But rather than spending more time talking about this tool, let's actually jump into a demonstration. I'll show you what it looks like, and I'll show you how quick and easy it is to get started. So let me grab my browser window and bring it over here. Okay, perfect. So this is Pi Vision, and you can see I've got it running in a Chrome browser right now. I'll give you a very quick overview to what's on the screen, and then I'll start creating, and you can see how it works. To start, over here on the right side, I've got my design panel, and this is where I'll actually be dragging and dropping data elements in order to build a display. At the top, I've got just basic editing features: undo, redo, cut, copy, paste, alignment features. If you've ever used PowerPoint or even something like Paint, this will be very familiar to you, and if not, it's very intuitive and very easy to learn. At the bottom, you've got the display timeline showing the start, the end, the duration for the elements that I'll put on the screen. And when I actually start adding trends and tables, you'll see how that timeline controls what's on the display. On the left side, I've got a couple different panes of things that I can put onto the display. So to start, I've got symbols or data objects, and these are just different types of visualizations. I've got trends or line charts, I've got data points, I've got tables, I've got different types of gauges or dials, bar charts, scatter charts, asset comparison tables. So again, a whole host of different ways to visualize data. Right here, I've got my asset framework. So this is how I've organized my tags. I've organized my attributes in order to represent my plant. And in this case, it's modeled after a cookie manufacturing plant or a bakery. So you can see I could potentially have multiple different plants with multiple different areas, and I can just start drilling down and I can find what I'm looking for easily. And you'll see that each layer has attributes. So at the line level, I've got a couple different roll-up calculations configured. So if I want to see the OEE for multiple mixers on my line, I've already created that calculation and I've rolled it up. But if I want to see information about one of my mixers, I can click here and see that information as well. And then down here is the list of attributes. These can be raw tags, they can be calculations, data pulled in from other databases, any type of data that you're able to pull into the Pi system you can access in Vision. I've got the ability to do a couple of calculations client side, and this is different than the more powerful asset analytics that are done server side and historized. This is for more ad hoc calculations if I want to add two tags together or do a quick delta to target that wasn't done server side. My users can actually do that here and use those on their displays. I've got a really nice graphical library that comes with hundreds, if not thousands of different elements. So if I want to create, a visualization of my two mixers, and then I've got, central agitator, I could draw out a visual representation of my line. I can upload my own images as well. Cancel that. And again, just create displays that are more meaningful and cleaner to look at. The last type of thing I can add to my display is an events table. I'll actually give you an example of this when we built out, but this is how I could put a visual representation of my last few downtime events or my last few batches on the screen. But with that, let's go ahead and jump in. This is easier, I think, to understand when you actually see somebody use the tool. So I'm just going to create a very simple display. I'm going to add a title to it. I'm going to call it Mixer Display, and I'm going to start dragging data elements on. In order to do that, I just select which type of object I want. I'll start with a little radial gauge. I grab the attribute I'm interested in. I drag it on. It's that easy. Once it's on the display, I can format it in a whole host of ways. I can change the way the dial looks. I can change the color. I can change the way the numbers are formatted to get rid of decimals. I can change the label just to be moisture content. Anything I want, I can put that at the top, the bottom, whichever makes the most sense for me and my users. From there, if I want to add multiple things, I could either start over or I can copy and paste because I've already formatted these how I want, and then I can just drag on different attributes, and they'll automatically update the data source. I set these to be yellow, but I can set these to be conditionally colored. I can say, if my agitator is above 62 RPM, that's good. If it's below that, it's bad, and I also want it to blink when it's bad. And I can make this be, whatever I want. I can set these up server side like they are here. Maybe my engineer said set that 62 threshold, and I don't want my users messing with it. Or if I leave those even if I leave those blank, I've got the ability for my users to actually set those up themselves. So maybe 80% is too high for my moisture content. Oops, we'll say 90, and then maybe below, let's say below 65 is also bad, and it's good. I'll do the same thing. If it gets too low, blank. So, tags coming from your machines, coming from your data sources, anything that you want your users to be able to see, they can build for themselves just like that, just by dragging and dropping. But again, where Pi starts to become really powerful is when you also use this to show your team analytics about how well they're doing, to show them the metrics that they care the most about. And I can drag and drop those onto the screen the exact same way. So if I want to take my mixer availability and put that on as a trend, I can do that. I can put on the performance, and again, I've got a whole host of ways to configure this. I can do one scale or multiple scales. I can tell the system what I want the scale range to be, or I can let it automatically determine. I could change the colors on these, anything that I want to make this, again, match my color scheme or make it clear for my users. And you can tell I'm getting started again. Very simple, very straightforward. Let me show you one thing that's really unique about Pi Vision, and that's how displays can sort of automatically scale or scale very simply. And it's a little obtuse, but I'll show you what I mean. So I built this out for Mixer 1. So let's go ahead and let's add the equipment name to my display. I just want to see the value, and I want to see it larger. So now this is clear. This information is for mixer one. But let's say I've got multiple mixers in my facility. Let's say I've got 10. I don't want to build this display out 10 different times with all of the different tags that correspond with each mixer. And with a lot of tools, I might have to. But with Pi, you don't, because Pi has something called contextual navigation or asset switching. And you can see that right up here. I'm able to hit this drop down. I can change to any of my other mixers and the display will update automatically. And that makes this really powerful. If I'm an operator on line one and I create this display and my supervisor says, wow, I want that on every single line, I can just save it and send it out. And then each operator, whatever mixer they're working on that day, they point it right there. Or if I'm a supervisor and I've got responsibility for multiple lines, I can grab this and I can convert it to a collection. And that's going to work in a really similar way. It's going to pull in all of my assets, or I can filter them based on category or by template. And then it's going to duplicate what was on my screen. So now when I go into monitor and out of display, I can see that everything I built for line one is replicated for line two. You'll also notice that the start time matches what's down here for my trend, as does the end time and the duration. And this is, again, how I can control how much data is on the screen and what data I'm looking for. I can jump this to see live values, and now it'll automatically update with live values. Or I can jump back in time and see what was happening back on the 30th. I'll note that these values, the ones that just show a single point in time, will always correspond with the end time of the display. So now that I've set this to be, let's just say noon today, these are the values that were active at noon. And if I switch it back into live mode, these will start automatically updating with current values again. I'll show you a couple other things. Now that I've created this collection, I can always still modify it. Maybe I want to grab a little mixer symbol and add that again, just a way to make this, a little bit more graphical. And then maybe I want to color code this. I can do multi-state on this as well. And I can grab any attribute like machine status. And I can say when you're faulted, I want you red. When you're started, I want you green. And when you're stopped, I want you orange. And then the same thing. It's going to automatically duplicate itself out for multiple mixers. I could make these hyperlinks. So I could say, hey, I want this to jump me to a new display. Maybe I create a more detailed display that's got 40 different attributes for each mixer. And depending on if I click on mixer one or mixer two, that next dashboard is going to load with that context. So if I click on mixer one, it'll open preloaded to mixer one. I think let's go ahead and let's add an event table. So here I can say which types of events I'm looking for. If I'm looking for my faults or any other different type, I can say, do I want to match my time bar duration? Do I want to see from the last 7 days? And which assets do I want to see? And I'll say the ones that are on display, and I'll create this table. And now this is going to give me a table of all my downtime events for these two mixers over the last 2 days. And let's jump this to just be 1 hour. Nope, we don't have anything. Let's make this 3 hours. There we go. We've got a couple faults. I will add something like reason code here. And now when I take this out of display mode, you can see how I've started to create a dashboard where my operators can see, a couple environmentals, a couple pieces of process data on how they're doing right now. They can see how well they're doing over time, and they can see their last few stoppages. And I can ask them to acknowledge these events to make sure that somebody's actually acted on it. I can ask them to categorize a reason code, and then I'll be able to go back later and be able to see how many downtimes did I have during this event or during this period, and how many of them were due to material jams versus gearbox failures versus any of the reason codes I've set up. So this is a relatively simple display, but you could see how I was able to create this in probably just 5-ish minutes. I could have gone faster if I wasn't talking as well. But I'll show you a couple of other examples of dashboards that are a little bit more complex and took a little bit longer to build out. Right, this is an example dashboard. You can see it's got a couple of different locations. It's got a nice summary page with some color coding about statistics versus targets. If I click on a location, it brings me to another dashboard that shows me how the assets at that location are doing. Again, a little OEE gauge, a current status, recent availability statistics, and information about my operation in general. I can click on a machine to go to another dashboard and see even more detailed display about that machine with links out to other reports and other systems. These could be either vision dashboards or just any URL. And again, this is a really good example of how multiple dashboards can all be strung together to let you see details at multiple different levels of the organization. Similar thing here, I've got a dashboard with multiple different sites where if I click on a site, it's going to automatically filter what I see on the page for that plant. If I click here, I see my Fulton lines. And then same thing, if I click on any of these lines, it's going to jump me to that more detailed display for that line. I've got some table data. I've got trends. It looks like this system's been disconnected. That's okay. But again, just a nice way for you to string multiple dashboards together and create a whole system or a whole platform for your team. So I think that's everything I wanted to cover. If you've got questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Please don't hesitate to reach out. I'd be happy to give you a more detailed demo or answer any questions you've got about what you've just seen and give you any more detail on the Pi system or any of our systems, really. So with that, thank you all for your time today. I'll turn it back over to Katie. Thanks, Katie.
Thanks, Jarrett. That was a great session. And thank you for joining us today. If you'd like to connect with us, you can find us on our website, email us, or give us a call. Thanks again, and I hope you have a great day.